Hello, I'm Forrest Wells once again, and welcome to our Series 7 Words to the Cross. Last week we talked about the word of scorn, of mocking that Jesus received. We reflected on the mocking that we may do ourselves of people that are not like us or that we're upset with, or on and on. Today we're focusing on the late word. And our focus is going to be on Pontius Pilate, who was the prefect or the procurator or the governor, we might say, of the region. He was appointed by the Caesar at the time, so he was a Roman official, and he was charged with keeping order among the people, collecting taxes, and doing some building projects around the area to keep commerce flowing well. So, of course, the Roman governor was not really appreciated by the Jewish people. So to give you a little better idea of the area and the context, I've got a couple of slides to show up, and first we're going to start with a slide that shows the temple area. The temple area in Jerusalem. Now we are looking down. This is a model city that you're looking at, constructed according to scale, and it's like we are looking from the Mount of Olives. So we're looking from the east. The Mount of Olives is the highest mount of the area, so we're looking east down toward the old city of Jerusalem, and you can see the temple. So you're looking at the eastern outer wall of the temple, and it's on the opposite side of the outer wall of the temple. That is the western wall, so clear on the other side of that temple courtyard. This temple area is where Jesus spent a lot of his ministry, and if you notice just over to the right, there is a little four pillars, the upper right-hand corner, and that is Antonia's fortress. So we'll switch to the next slide, and you can see Antonia's fortress. Now, what's important about this is that Pontius Pilate would have been headquartered here. Now, imagine Jesus came in to the holy city of Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. We celebrated at Palm Sunday anyway, and he came into the city from the east, and there was throngs of people that were welcoming him and hailing him King of the Jews. Well, on that same day, or maybe a little bit before, the week before, there was another processional of a governor, of a ruler, and Pontius Pilate would have been coming in from the west. He would have been coming in with extra soldiers, because during the time of Passover would be the time where rebellion would be incited. The people of Israel felt the strongest, and they would then perhaps form an uprising. So during the Feast of Passover, where the temple was overflowing with worshipers and the possibility for rebellion was at the highest, the Roman soldiers reinforced Antonia's fortress, and Pilate would have been there to see over things and to judge things as well. The next slide shows the pools of Bethesda. So in the background, you see the pillars that make up Antonia's fortress. And I just point out the pools of Bethesda because Jesus had one of his healing miracles there. So the old city of Jerusalem, which was much smaller than today's old city of Jerusalem, was very easy walking distance and very close proximity. So everything of Holy Week was very close together, whether it was the temple or Antonia's fortress, the pools of Bethesda, the place of the skull, the crucifixion, and even the graveyard where Jesus may have been laid. So this brings us again to Pontius Pilate, and the next slide is simply a scenario, an artist's depiction of Pilate talking to the crowds, and Jesus there in the background. And as Pilate is talking to the crowds, he knows that Jesus hasn't done anything that deserves death. And so, as you will read in the book of John, chapter 18 and 19, and please do read this at the beginning of your session, the group sessions. But Pilate is really trying to reason with the people to say, let Jesus go. Now, he does it, though, in a very accommodating fashion. So Pilate knows what is right, but he is weak at this point, at least from our perspective. He's weak and does not stand his ground. He allows the people of Israel, the priests or the mob that's gathered together, he allows them to influence his judgment. So there is Jesus reasoning with, or Pilate reasoning with the crowd, and Jesus in the background, and all the people want to do, incited by the priests that are jealous of Jesus, all they want to do is crucify him. Now, why do I say that Pilate probably thought that Jesus was innocent? If Jesus had really been inciting riots, if he had really been preaching about the overthrow of the Roman government, Pilate wouldn't have waited for the people of Israel, the priests, to bring false charges. He would have taken Jesus and had him crucified himself. But he knew this was a religious argument, and that the people of Israel were against Jesus, or at least the priests and this mob of people. So Pilate knew of Jesus' innocence. Now, what is the late word? The late word, and as we switch to another slide that again shows the temple and the proximity I want to show you is that in the background, in the upper right-hand corner, you can barely make out a little tower. It would have been that close where Jesus was crucified, just outside the walls of the city at that time. He was crucified there. But the final act of Pilate that we want to take notice of is the washing of his hands. And so the next slide is another artist's depiction. At the end, in one of the accounts, Pilate washes his hands and says, whatever you do, it's on you. So in other words, instead of standing his ground as the Roman representative, the Roman governor, Pilate turns Jesus over to the people to do as they will. He sanctions his crucifixion without sentencing Jesus himself. And then the late word, as we come back to the cross here at Cargill, the late word that he said was, what is written, I have written. And that means that there was an inscription that was hung up on the cross of Jesus that said, the King of the Jews. It was written in Latin. It was a phrase that was used to designate, whether in ridicule or in reality, for all the people to see, the King of the Jews. So Pilate was late. He was late in his affirmation of Jesus. He was late in his support of Jesus, and he was weak. The late word. Dr. Ellsworth Collis, as you have read the material, he focuses on what can be a late word for ourselves. In the past year, I have experienced the death of both of my parents. There's many in our congregation who have been experiencing death and grief. There's other situations that will lend itself to the late word, but in death and grief, we often think of what we should have done, or should have said, or what we wish we had done, or what we wish we had not done. And so some people, we go through life thinking about the decisions that we made or that we didn't make. We think of the people that we have cared for or that we didn't care for. And often we can think of ourselves as saying the late word, realizing after it's too late to say, I love you, to spend time with a loved one, to take up the dream that we had of being a writer or a pilot or a teacher or just fill in the blank. It's the late word. Sometimes we have lacked courage or insight, or sometimes we have just been too busy. But this week we focus on the late word. So I hope a little bit of understanding about Pontius Pilate, who was a governor for about 10 years in Israel, representing Rome. I hope a little bit of reflections of the scenario, of the context, will help you dig a little bit deeper into Pilate, who we might revile as being weak, but who I see some in myself as one who has good intentions, but is sometimes too late. May God aid us in our reflection and in your discussion and study today.